Hey guys, what's up? This is just future Ryan from the future doing my editing. This is the third time that I have tried to edit this and the file keeps getting corrupted. So to be honest, this video is going to be a little bit more plainer than I wanted to edit. But I've already put in 3.5 hours for that just to go down the tubes again because it crashes and corrupts the file and does all this other shit. So, unfortunately, I'm just going to give you pretty much the raw footage. Sorry about that, guys. It's not what I want. It's not what I love to do. But this is really just an impasse for me right now. And I need to get this video finished, saved, just with a basic placket on it. Otherwise, I'm going to go crazy and I'm not going to get to any of the videos I need to edit today. I'm sorry that it's not the highest quality that I want it to be, but sometimes I have to make sacrifices. I don't know. It sucks. I'm kind of pissed at my editing software right now. I want to let you know that. I want to be transparent about that process because I don't want you to think that I just don't give a shit. I do. It's just this one's going to have to deal. It's going to have to sit in syrup. So, yeah. Anyway, guys, please do enjoy the video. I would love to say I worked hard on this, but I worked too hard on this, and it sucked, so whatever. At least it has my smiling face in it. I'll give you that. Hey guys, what's up? This is False Bulls 123 coming to you from Medford, Oregon. Now this is day 25, oh my goodness, of the quarantine vlogs, and I decided for today that I just needed to go full douche and just wear my Sun's Out, Guns Out t-shirt. This is a tank top, but whatever. Now, like I said yesterday, we were discussing about McElroy Podcast, and looking through these, I realized I've only listened to maybe 30% of these, and I feel like a fake fan. However, I have written a large amount about the McElroys on the internet before, and, we're going to discuss them. I'm going to give you a lot of what I remember about the shows I have seen, and then I'm just going to tell you about the shows I haven't, because even though I have not seen them, I have at least written down the synopsises on the internet. So I did do a little comparing, and I realized that there are quite a few podcasts that are not new. I just forgot about them because they changed their logo art, which does happen occasionally with podcasts. Some podcasts keep the same logo art for all of their seasons. Other ones will literally change it every couple years. I think that's good. That makes it look fresh. It makes it look newer, and people are just oh, what's this? I haven't seen it before, but secretly you have. And so I'm just gonna get started. If you're wondering where I'm getting these names from, I am looking both on the McElroy Podcast page on the Podcast Database Wiki, which is one that I have actually been the main contributor to. I originally wrote the page. I'm sure there has been some editing while I wasn't active on the wiki. And I'm also looking at the McElroy.family page, which is the third reiteration of the website. It began as Bim Bam. Then I believe it was the McElroy shows for the longest time, which is the era that I was researching McElroys. And this was mostly in the year of 2017 that I was doing most of this research. So this page is about 2 years old by this point. But now it is the McElroy Family, which I think is much more accurate, since there are a few podcasts that are done with tangential members of the family that don't involve the brothers. But we're going to get on with that. So let's see. We have, first off, Bunker Buddies. I remember Bunker Buddies being the middle era podcast. They have the modern era right now, which is where they're doing things. And then they had the really early era where it was just kind of Bim Bam and the Adventure Zone and stuff like that. So Bunker Buddies is one of the standalone podcasts. So basically, generally how the podcasts are organized is you'll have all three brothers, and you have 3 or 4 podcasts that are like that. You have the Adventure Zone, you have a Bim Bam, and then I think you have Paul Blart and things like that. And then you usually have, one podcast that has them and their wives, namely Schmanners, Rose Buddies, and Sawbones. Though there's now, some that are discontinued, some that are redone. And we'll sort of, get there. And then you have a few that are just like, some of the brothers with like some of their friends doing things. And that's actually a lot of the podcast. Then fourth category, you have basically just other members of the family. So if I remember correctly, there was one that just had Clint McElroy and another family member, I believe. I could not find out how they were related, and I looked really hard. Like, I was scrolling through, like, the Herald, trying to, like, figure, like, if they were ever mentioned, like, and I could not figure out how they were related, because they said they were related, but not specifically. And I'm just, like, looking at this, like, little, like, sketched out, like, map of their family tree, and I'm thinking, like, I'm knowing way too much about their family at this point. I'm just going to stop. I'm sure if I watch the podcast, they will tell me, but I also didn't listen to the podcast. And I don't even think that, like, it's listed anymore. If it is, I'll mention it, though. And there's, like, one's, like, still buffering, which is, like, Sydney and her, like, sisters, and that's not blood related to the McElroys, but through marriage. So there's obviously, like, there's a little more tangential podcasts to the brand. But let's get on to actually saying words out of my mouth hole and describing these to you. So first up is Bunker Buddies. That is Travis McElroy, and Travis is, let me remember correctly, the middle child. And he does it with his friend Andy Bolt. I remember this being listed under the comedy tab in Maximum Fun, which is the network that a lot of these podcasts were done on. And I'd actually love to, like, actually do real research and talk about Maximum Fun in maybe, like, a weekly vlog one of these days. Because I'm sort of just doing this really casual discussion right now, but it would be fun to actually do an honest-to-goodness, like, redone vlog where I talk about the McElroys or talk about Brennan Roach. It was like some sort of pop culture thing that's actually written and not me just bullshitting for 20 minutes. So basically, Bunker Buddies is him and Andy Bolt. They're just talking about different, like, apocalypse scenarios. Maybe it's zombies, maybe it's nuclear war, maybe it's, like, all these other things. And they're just like, how would we survive? Like, how would we do things? And I believe it was a comedy, and they're just, like, taking the piss about, like, oopsie daisy, apocalypse, how? Yeah. And I never watched it, but it always looked really good, so I'll have to give it a try one of these days. Interrobang, ooh, that's a fun one. So that is also Travis McElroy, but it's with his friend TB Diskin, who is actually really cool. I know this because I wrote an article about her on the wiki. So, let's see, TB Diskin, she is an actor. I've actually seen her film, like her film reel, like whatever you call like those reels that actors like make that show like all their acting talent. And one of the interesting things she is known for, like in all the nerd lore, is that she actually was a actress in a fan web series of Fallout. And what was really cool about that was that Fallout, like the series actually included an item in the game that was a reference to the series. But it was more of a parody of a reference or something, and then they actually included that item in the series itself, so it's this weird reciprocal reference between the two properties. And TV Diskin was actually in that, and I actually spent a little bit of time reading about it. So the show they're in Interrobang, which, if you aren't familiar with the term, is essentially this excited questioning sound, like, huh? And so it's basically we put a question mark and an exclamation point together. And I'll try to put a little symbol here or something to illustrate the point. But the term is a punctuation mark, which basically shows excitement and confusion at the same time. And it's very niche, but the reason why they call it that is it's for something that confuses and angers them. So they're just basically it's a rant episode where they just get together and be angry at something. And honestly, I live for that, even though I have not listened to it. But see, this is what I feel bad, because there's so many good premises that I have not listened to. Now, next up is one that I actually have listened to. So we're going to be spending a lot of time in this section. And I do apologize if I'm going through these podcasts really quickly. It's just, for a lot of these, I don't really have much to say about them. Because there was a lot of podcasts, and I'm sorry that in my podcast listening phase, I wasn't listening to 20 podcasts from the same people. That's a lot. I'm going to count these up when we're done and try to figure out, like, how many podcasts there are. And that's just going to be at the end in, like, some little edited thing because I don't want to waste time, like, trying to edit this into the video, like, directly. Anyway, next up is Sawbones, a marital guide to misguided medicine, which, let's be honest, as headlines go, excellente. So Sawbones is Sydney McElroy and the oldest brother, Justin. And it's really interesting because Sydney is actually a doctor. She practices, if I remember correctly, family medicine. And so she, has an interest in medical history. Which makes sense. As a cook, I have an interest in food history. It makes sense. It's just part of the niche. And so basically every single episode, she'll talk about, her and Jess will talk about some sort of, weird thing that happened in, medical history. First episode was trepidation, but they also did things such as the humor system of medicine, or, vaccines, because, topical. And, all of these other things. Cowpox, bloodletting, there's a lot of, different things that they would talk about. I remember one of the earlier episodes, they had this entire, section just about, weird plague remedies. And so most of it is Sydney just, being very humorous, talking about, all these different subjects with, zeal. And then Justin is sort of the funny man. He will, crack jokes. He'll add this color commentary that just adds a little bit of punch to it. And then mostly just so it's educational. It's funny, it's interesting, but it also has, some interesting education points to it. Now, if you're a long-time watcher of my channel and have some sort of masochism fetish, you may have seen the internet deep dive I did, which talked about the Heimlich maneuver controversy. So, basically, they had one episode, which was titled the Heimlich maneuver. I believe it was done in 2014. Don't quote me on that. I have exact date in, that video. And essentially, they did all about the Heimlich maneuver, and the son of the man who was, Dr. Heimlich, Peter, did a whole bunch of legal, maneuvers against them. He wrote a very angry blog post on his thing about how they, degraded, and they were, were libeling him, and all of this other stuff. And then he actually tried to, not only did he send, this massive amount of emails about, all of these things, it's hey, can you prove this stuff? And it was very aggressive, in my opinion, though I do understand my bias as a fan of them. And then, which I think definitely goes too far, he actually tried to get her disbarred from her medical practice because of that episode of her podcast. And the people the medical board came back and said, this is just a podcast, you're taking it too seriously. We didn't find this a encroach on someone by discussing historical facts and publicly available information. And I ranted about that in my commentary video there, which I'm just gonna take a little aside. That's actually a really hard video to make. Ready to Glare makes it look so easy, and then I tried it and it was so hard, and it took forever to edit just because there's all these tangents I needed to cut out. And that's why it took so, that's why, production quality was, so shitty, was because it was an hour-long video that I, condensed even more. So, Sawbones was really good, and it's actually one of the longer-running ones. So, before they started the podcast, and you can actually, it's weird because you'll literally listen to them mention things in their lives in some of the episodes that are, super, just dramatically ironic for, later in the series. When they started with Bim Bam, some of the brothers were not even married. They were, dating the people that eventually became their wives, but they weren't married. I remember Travis mentioning that he was dating Teresa in, a Bim Bam episode of them, thinking, wait a second, you married that chick. Surprise and spoilers. Past you. But, anyway, the reason why I mentioned that is that during the episode, during Sawbones, they actually discussed, the birth of their first child. Sydney and Justin's first child. And so it was actually really interesting. I believe they have 2 kids now, but let's stop with the celebrity gossip. And get onto the episode thing. Okay, next up, Schmanners. Schmanners is Travis McElroy and his wife Teresa, and yeah, I'm totally reading this off the script because I'm a piece of trash. Oh yeah, I just mentioned her. And what they did, and this is one of the sort of husband-wife projects, is they did an episode, and it was like an etiquette podcast, which is really interesting. If you know me in real life, you may know that I tend to be a very formal person, and that was just my upbringing. It's sort of like, the way that I sort of process things. It's just like, I'm very formal. And I know that seems weird because I curse a lot on this channel. I act like a fucking goofball, but in real life, I'm very polite, almost like ridiculously polite. And it's not something that like I intentionally try these days. By now, it's really just a very knee-jerk reaction that I'm a very polite person because that's how I was raised to treat people and all of that. So I found it really interesting. I only listened to one episode about it, and it was actually about thank you letters. And I thought it was really interesting because, as a kid, I was always told, like, somebody sends you a gift for Christmas or, like, Easter, you write them a thank you letter because it shows your appreciation. But then they were just like, well, hold up. Let's get on to, like, the important things. If somebody sends you a thank you letter, do you need to send them a thank you letter for thanking them? And the answer, of course, is obviously no. If somebody thanks you, you should say you're welcome. But, it's a good question. And so, basically, Teresa and Travis are basically, like, just discussing all of these, like, matters of etiquette. And I don't know, and I haven't, like, done too much research. I really just ran into this thing. But I'm not sure if it's still going, but that would definitely be a fun podcast to listen to again. Because I do like, those more just kind of self-education, more like, podcasts that aren't super comedic, but just, like, talking about, like, random subjects that aren't true crime or, like, news and stuff. Another and it's getting off topic, but another podcast I listened kind of like that was, I think it's called Grammar Girl, and it's literally just these, like, 10-minute podcast episodes about, like, different grammatical concepts, which helps me as a writer. And I like that, because apparently I'm a nerd and I'm boring. So, next up, Surprisingly Nice! Oh my goodness. This is also Travis. I know, he's very prolific. Travis has, if I remember correctly, Travis actually had a lot of podcasts, even compared to the other brothers. He had like 6 from the last time that I actually wrote this. So, he does it with Hal Lublin, who is a fairly prolific actor. As podcasters go, he was probably one of the more visible ones that I had researched compared to, like, other people. And there's, like, quite a good amount. Like, there's a lot of famous people who have done podcasts. Hal Lublin has acted in a bunch of things that I cannot remember off the top of my head. But in the podcasting world, you might know him as... Oh my goodness. Give me a second to look up who the... I am so sorry, guys. Like, look at me being a trash human being. But I will look it up real quick because I can do that. Carlsberg! That was not a good impression. Hal Lublin is the voice actor for Steve Carlsberg in the absolutely great Welcome to Night Vale, which is the first podcast I ever listened to. So, you have heard his voice before, most likely, because he's really famous. He also has one of the, side point, Hal Lublin actually has one of the largest wiki pages on the site for, like, a voice actor, because he has, like, over 100, like, listed references that I could find, which is a lot. Like, especially for someone who's not an earwolf, like, that's a lot. Actually, he might be an earwolf, everyone is. Sorry. Surprisingly Nice is basically, they did interviews with people that, they seem like a chill person. So, like, it's just humans being bros on this podcast. Like, it sounded like a super wholesome interview show. I actually found their Libsyn page, and it only lists 5 episodes on it, ranging from, let's say, 2018 to, January 17th, 2017 to January 22nd, 2018. So it didn't seem to be that long running of a podcast. But, definitely something that might be fun to check out one of these days. I enjoy, like, interview shows for the most part. I don't listen to a lot of them, but I do know there's a lot of really fun ones out there. One I've kept my eye on is probably, I think it was called Query. And it might be The Wrong Wife, but it's done by Cameron Esposito, who is just, oh my goodness. Like, they're the best. Like, I can't remember her wife's name, but, like, they're the best. I love them. Anyway, moving on from ranting about different podcasters that aren't related to the McElroys, is The Kind Rewind. Another podcast by Travis and Teresa this time. So, he brought his wife in again. I remember The Kind Rewind being a bit newer than the other podcasts. I remember discovering them sort of near the end of my wiki editing period, which was early 2018, because I had just started, college. I mostly just did not have as much time because I was in college, and also the Wi-Fi sucked at college. It was really bad. And The Kind Rewind is just the sort of, it's kind of that, Netflix special, The Shows That Made Us or something, where they're basically just reviewing older, media. So TV shows, movies from, 80s, 90s, stuff like that. Oh, dang it. I remember there was another podcast like that on Earwolf, but I don't remember what it was. I'll just, put a little editing thing up here if I find it. Never watched it, but it looked good. I'm just not... Weirdly enough, since I'm a media reviewer on the Boolean blog, you'd think I'd be really into, movie podcasts and TV show podcasts, but honestly, not really. YouTube, yeah, I'll watch, all sorts of, I'm watching these old, obscure, anime, lost media videos, but honestly, I don't really watch a lot of media podcasts, which I think that's kind of weird. But maybe it's just because I like to consume audio dramas. I like to consume fiction in audio form. I don't really care that much about nonfiction because I like it with YouTube where there's actually pictures too. Anyway, moving on. We're gonna actually get through this damn thing before this video is 5 hours long. Till Death Do Us Blart. Now this is an interesting one. This is done with what is the names? It's a specific podcast. So Till Death Do Us Blart is give me a second. Oh, okay. Sorry, I had to find the name of the podcast. It was The Worst Idea of All Time. Basically, it's a collab between them and the McElroy brothers, and the whole point of it is that they watch the movie Paul Blart Mall Cop 2, specifically the sequel, every year on Thanksgiving, and they record it, and they do the commentary of it. And as they say, they will do it to, the heat death of the universe. And as premises go, that's one of the weirder ones, but they have fun with it, and it's if you can't have a fun collab time with your friends, what you doing, okay? What you doing? So, moving on, we move on to another Travis McElroy podcast. I told you, he has a lot of them. Trends like these. Pop culture, current events, is I can't really describe the genre any more than that because there's a lot of them. They just say, hey, what's this thing that happened in pop culture today? Let's, bullshit about it. He does that with his friend Brent Black, who, that name sounds horribly familiar, but I don't know where it's from. Moving on, just because we have a lot of them here today, we have Can I Pet Your Dog? Now, this is actually really interesting. So this is, once again, Travis McElroy, but his, part of it is a little bit different. So, main host is Allegra Ringo and Renee Colvert, and they just talk about dogs! Yay! All of them doggos up in yo grill. Travis McElroy actually was a producer for this series, though I believe he also was a guest star occasionally on the episodes. Let's see, after episode 57, though, he left his productorship. I guess that's the word. So he's no longer a part of the show. And I'm not even sure if Can I Pet Your Dog is even running anymore. But it might be, because there's a lot of podcasts on, Max Fun that I don't listen to. Not because they aren't good, just because there's a lot of them. Okay, moving on is Still Buffering, and that's probably the more interesting podcast, out there. I say they're all interesting, but I think it's interesting in concept. So, if you remember Sawbones, you have Dr. Sydney McElroy, who was Justin's wife. She has two sisters named Taylor and, let me just look at my cheat sheet, Riley. And basically, they're all sort of different ages. Sydney's the oldest, Riley's the youngest. And so they got together and they just talked about teen stuff, prom and I don't know, actually. Just teenager topics. And so, it's just this, kind of wholesome, podcast with these three sisters who just, want to talk about, different subjects that are, still and how, like, the different generations reacted to, like, all this, like, teenage drama. And as it goes, I think it was, like, a really cute concept. I remember when it first came out because they advertised it on Sawbones. And interestingly enough, Riley has actually been in 2 episodes. She has guest starred in 2 episodes of Sawbones, usually as a replacement for Justin. And it's actually really fun just because, like, they had that crossover between episodes where they'll bring in, like, different people. And I like that, like, they've expanded it to include other members of the family. And that's really nice. Oh, I forgot to mention it, and this is really silly, but, Justin and Sydney's kid actually has appeared in the podcast before. But, like, as a small wee baby child, so usually crying. So, like, technically, they have also guest starred. Moving on is Quality Control. Quality Control is one of the several podcasts that... Oh, wow, I've gotten really far down this list. Anyway, Quality Control is one of the many podcasts and, like, web series that Polygon has produced. So Justin does it because he's a writer for Polygon. He's actually, an editor at large, not the biggest in journalism, so I don't know what that means. Yeah, I know I'm a hack. And basically that discusses game reviews with the critics that reviewed them. That sounds like an awesome, like, idea. I don't watch, like, video game commentary at all, which is weird since I also review video games. So you think, oh, Ryan, maybe you should, like, actually read other people's work so you can be good. But let's be honest, fam. When have I ever been good? So along with that is also Coolgames Inc, which is hosted by Griffin McElroy and Nick Robinson. And I don't actually have any information about Nick Robinson. Sorry about that. Moving on. Once again, another Polygon podcast, the Besties, is a gaming review podcast, and that includes Justin, Chris Plant, and Frushtick. Hopefully I said that correctly, Russ. Sorry about that. And the last one that's listed on this page, the last one that I ever actually wrote about was Wonderful. And if you notice, these are all listed in alphabetical order. Wonderful is... This was, if I remember correctly, Wonderful was actually made after Rose Buddies. So, it has Rachel and Griffin McElroy, which I realized do not actually have too many podcasts by themselves. They had Rose Buddies, and they had this, actually. And that's kind of interesting, especially with... I'm starting to realize that Travis has mostly done a lot of the podcasting. But, like, that's okay, Travis. You do you, baboon. You get that coin, son. Yes. Okay. And Wonderful is basically, it's another one of those, like, episodic things where they just talk about something that's, like, it's just great. Like, I love this thing. Let's talk about it for half an hour. Oh, so you mean my channel? No, I'm just joking. And basically, let's see, what I wrote about it. They'll talk about things they love and invite listeners to write in with their treasured items of enthusiasm. So, once again, just really wholesome, like, podcasting. We love it. It's great. So, now what I'm doing is I'm actually, like, just scrubbing through the McElroy Family website, because there is a few podcasts on here that I have not seen before, or I just did not write about, and I want to include them. So make sure that we get most of the podcasts that they have done. I think I got most of them. I probably missed one because they have a lot. And I swear that I've missed at least one. I know there was one that was like this legal podcast that had Clint McElroy in it, and I cannot find it anywhere. So if you do remember what that was called, comment down below. Help me out, just spread that love and affection. Okay. The McElroy Brothers will be in Trolls World Tour. I know this one was originally called The McElroy Brothers Will Be in Trolls, and I actually have no idea what it is about. All it ever says, if the McElroy Brothers will be in Trolls World Tour, this is the story of how it happened. I do not remember the McElroy Brothers being in Trolls, though I did surprisingly enjoy that movie. I did not expect to like it, but I did. I didn't think it was, like, the height of, like, children's animation, but it was good. Like, it was a decent all-around movie. It was palatable, okay? But I do not remember the McElroys bringing Mac, because if I had heard the McElroy Brothers' sweet, dulcet tones, I would have been, like, having that nerdgasm. I would have been like, oh, woo, get it, my fresh, fine boys. but there was no boys in it, and I was sad. No, it's still a good movie. If I'm making an educated guess, I'm assuming it is kind of like the whole Jack's filmed emoji movie thing, where it's just like this almost ironic hyping about it. Oh my god. Oh, do you remember that, like, when Jack's films... I'm getting off topic. Do you remember, like, when Jack's films was just, like, so obsessed with, like, the emoji movie? And that was, like, the only time I was watching Jack's films, but it was just great. Anyway, so I don't know what it's about. They have, like, 6 episodes right now. I don't know if I'm going to be watching World Tour, but I know my aunt is, because my little cousin Steven is obsessed with that, like, franchise. He literally has watched, like, The Trolls, The Beat Goes On, like, 15 times, and I have, like, seen every episode of it. Specifically the episode where, it's like Poppy, and she, like, makes this machine that produces rainbows, but then it starts a tornado, and she feels sad because she's, like, I don't know, like, it's just shenanigans. But I'm gonna move on because we're getting off topic. Let's see. Okay, there's a few new ones here. And if I really loved you, I would go to, like, Maximum Fun and check it out. But I don't love you that much. I'm sorry, fam. Next up is The Empty Bowl. And this is, like, the weirdest one that I have heard from them. And they have a lot. Okay, they have a lot of podcasts. The Empty Bowl is, let's see, a meditative podcast about cereal from serial eater Justin McElroy. I'm glad we cleared that up. And Cerealicious creator Dan Gubert. That seems interesting. I like cereal. So, fun fact, in elementary school, we had to do a essay about a historical figure. I did mine on W.K. Kellogg, the philanthropist and creator of Kellogg's Cereal Co. Interestingly enough, my least favorite historical figure is his brother, J.K. Kellogg, who can die in a fucking hole. Next up is Run, a Doctor Who fan cast. I like that reference. I'm very much a Whovian. I think that's what they call them. We, Travis McElroy and TB Diskin, love to see them again. Love TB. Literally, I have her cover of White Wedding on my, like, YouTube covers playlist. And I listen to that sometimes just because it's such a great cover. We gush, we analyze, we stand a temp from Cheswick. I feel like a fake fan because I don't get that reference, but honestly, I stopped watching after, Actually, like, turned into that old guy that was in the Pompeii episode, and I'll just put, like, his actual name here and, like, his face here, because I'm apparently a fake fan. But there's a lot of episodes, and it's not on Netflix, so you can't blame me. We bought all of those frickin', like, movies with the snowman and Clara Oswald in it. Anyway, coming up next is Posiviteeny. Hopefully I pronounced that right. Messages of hope, support, and inspiration in 10 minutes or less. Well, that sounds nice. Like, I've been watching that Daily Chill show from Quibi. And I don't love Quibi. It's okay, but... And, like, it's like an okay show, so I mentioned something like that. I don't know who these other people are, but it has Travis McElroy, and apparently he has, like, the whole Markiplier blue hair now, so... We stand. Nice. And next up is... Ooh, interesting. Neat! Oh, that's fun. I like that. A weekly booze cast hosted by Taylor Smurl. Oh, wow. And Liz June. Oh, okay, that's actually really interesting. Join us for podcast adventures and we learn about booze history and occasionally learn some of your favorite pirates. Okay, I do have some stuff to say about that, just because I'm a weeb and I've stalked their entire family. JK, it was research. That's what I'm going to tell the judge. So, Taylor Smurl actually works professionally as a bartender. I know this mostly from her Instagram and Twitter that I have casually looked at while writing her wiki page. Now, I think that's actually really interesting because okay, you don't know this about me, but I love alcohol. I'm a bit of a booze hound. And I actually really love bartending. I just think it's an interesting compliment to, like, my culinary side. And mostly I just love to drink. So the idea that it's like my McElroy Family brand, but also alcohol, I stand. I am down to get jiggy with it. Don't know who Liz June is, but I'm sure she's a fun gal who wants to do fun things with life. So guys, I think that was about all today. Yesterday and today was about all. I'm going to guess 25, but after I say goodbye to you, I'm going to actually list every single podcast I could find in order. Alphabetically, not chronologically, because I don't love you that much. So anyway, guys, that was pretty much all of the McElroy's podcasts that I could find, like I said. And I mostly just had a really fun time going through it, kind of like reacting to like the podcast that I didn't know about. And just mostly fanboying. Because I assume that's what you're here for, is me being a fucking weirdo and being like, oh my goodness, the McElroys. Because, like, if you're not, then you were seriously disappointed when you clicked on this video. Do you know how long this video is? It's like half an hour long, and you watch that? What the fuck are you doing with your life? No, in all seriousness, like, thank you. I love you. Thank you for the views. You're the best. And like, have a cookie. I can't give you a cookie through, like, the screen. I tried, but, like, I got crumbs all over, like, my camera, and it was terrible. But that's not the point. The point is that you're great, and thanks for watching. As always, guys, I just want to mention, you can always like this, because it lets me know how I'm doing if you like this content. And it also lets YouTube know that I'm the baddest bitch that deserves all the love and affection. Because, I mean, look at me. Who does not deserve to like this face? Like, look at this face. You deserve a, I deserve a like, okay? I'm just saying. Next up, you can always comment, because I want to hear from you. I want to know all of the cool things, like, you know, definitely recommendations on how to make my channel better, because, well, let's be honest. Have you seen this channel? It needs some work, sweetie. But also, let's talk about, like, you know, all of our favorite McElroy shows. Tell me what your favorite McElroy show is, or your favorite podcast, or, let's be honest, let's just talk about which one of the McElroy brothers is your favorite. I think Justin is going to be my favorite, but I just like Sawbones, so I'm biased. And lastly, you can share this video. I know, it's a revolutionary new concept. You can click that share button because you probably have a friend out there that is obsessed with podcasts, that's obsessed with the McElroy brothers, and they just want to see my dumb face fanboy about them for a half an hour. And if you got a friend like that, you need to send them to this bitch. Because they need that positivity in their life, okay? Anyway, guys, I'm going to shut the fuck up because I needed to do that half an hour ago. And all in all, I just wanted to let you know, this is False Bulls 123 and I'm signing off.